bullshit.
He watches his mother shoot his father 3 times in the back.
I'm Mr. Blackman. They're the puppets.
Do I look like Quasimodo to you?
What about Johnny Lauer? What about China?
Big speech of the deathbed.
Adrenaline rush now. Adrenaline rush now. Adrenaline rush now.
It opened up with great moment. Steiner threatened to kill Slick Johnson. Always entertainment. Then we had... I got to actually sit up here.
We can talk about that for a while. Borash was interviewing Steiner and Jarrett, and Slick came up and started screaming and rambling about something. And he mentioned something about Scotty. He made fun of his headdress or something, but Scott stood there, and I thought to myself, Scott Steiner should kill this man right now. And almost simultaneously, I could picture Scott saying, I should kill this man right now, because he slowly began to walk over and walk behind Slick. And then when the time was right, he killed him, and it was great.
So then we had a real, truly awesome segment, which was the LAX deal, which is noted earlier. LAX is just fantastic.
The hottest act on any show.
Everything about them is awesome. The ring entrance is awesome. The characters are awesome. The wrestling is awesome. The promos are awesome. Everything is just completely awesome. And it actually got more awesome afterwards when they completely destroyed 2 geeks. I don't even know who they were. Conan took over the American announce booth, and him and Moody Jack, who's in the other booth, were just ranting and raving during the match. And
awesome.
It was fantastic. So after the match, AJ and Daniels appeared on the big screen, and AJ was in a neck brace selling the Gringo Killer from last week. And Daniels said, you know what, if you guys have the, what's that word? Pantalones, you will face me next week.
And what does pantalones mean, Brian?
His trousers, basically.
Pants.
Yes.
Yes.
And even Homicide was trying so fucking hard to not laugh at this Gringo. If ever there's need for a Gringo Killer, it is
right now.
Even I am not that white. Even I
knew
pantalones,
huevos,
and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
I can only imagine they were going over this backstage, and Chris Daniels walked up to Conan and said, "Hey, I should question your manhood. What's the Spanish word for balls?" And Conan looked at him and said, "Pantalones." Daniel said, "Okay, thanks."
And I should have said huevos, which is eggs.
Yeah. Anyway, he said pantalones.
Huevos. It's eggs.
That is, I understand the literal translation is eggs, but that's what I've heard they use as a euphemism for testicles.
Where's Steel Latino here?
That's ask him.
Say El Caco or something.
El Balls.
El something or other. Anyway, it all ruled.
It was all great.
AMW faced the Naturals. This was just utter stupidity. This was dumb. All right. Naturals are getting a push as a new team. Shane Douglas comes out and goes, "There's been a thorn in the side of the Naturals for years. These damn AMW. They're going to beat them tonight." So AMW comes out, and it's AMW versus the Naturals, and the match goes 2 minutes. Fuck's fluke finish. The Naturals win, and then out comes Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett to destroy them. And I thought, there's your big win. You won a 2-minute fluke, and you just got treated like fucking goofballs. And this was someone's idea of getting you over. Seriously, one of the stupidest things I've ever seen.
I don't disagree with that, but I'm fine with it. Because it's the Naturals.
Because you hate the Naturals. But
yes, I don't want to see them push. I would rather see this.
At least, can you at least say for purely selfish reasons? Can you
yes.
At least, okay, thank you.
I totally admit that.
For
my own entertainment, I was fine with this.
Always preface it like that, because otherwise I start thinking you are just an idiot that doesn't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm not an idiot. I am just selfish.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
But this was stupid. I'm looking at for the betterment.
I do not say it was not stupid.
So
I'm saying I enjoyed it.
Larry came out in his wig, and by the way, Slick Johnson should be fired for ruining the wig gimmick in the first week. The wig gimmick is great as long as nobody acknowledges the wig. That is the key to this comedy. When Larry Zbyszko showed up last week in the most absurd wig, and he starts talking to everybody, and everybody may glance at the wig, but they don't actually go, "Hey, you're wearing a wig," or "Hey, that's not your or "Hey, what's that on your head?" As long as you don't acknowledge it, that's great comedy. And instead, Slick Johnson had to do the exaggerated holding his belly laughter and just completely killed it. This week, nobody mentioned the hair. Larry just came out with the most absurd hairpiece on, and I just was crying with laughter. It was so great.
It was enormous.
It was awesome. That's the only way you can do this gimmick. So, anyway, he announced that Jarrett had to leave the building and Steiner had to stay and some other bullshit, but we'll get into that later. So, then we had a sit-down interview with Christian. This is what I was going to talk about. This is where this is good stuff. It was TNA and Sting, actually. And they're talking about how Christian is going to be in Sting's corner at the pay-per-view. And Christian's turning on him. He has to.
Yeah.
Okay? This is a deal where everybody knows that it's time. Everybody knows Christian's going to fuck him over. And the way Sting's doing the interview, he's making it patently obvious that Christian is going to fuck me over, everybody. He's making it very clear. And this is one of those times where everybody knows what's going to happen, and it's got to happen. This is not one of those deals where everybody knows what's going to happen, so we've got to swerve them.
Yes, that would be a
Let's have
horrible
Sting
idea.
turn on Christian, or something fucking Russo-rific.
Yeah.
That would be a disaster. This is perfect pro wrestling booking. Everybody knows, so give it to them. They're paying $34.95 or $29.95. Just give it to them.
Give them what they're paying to see.
Otherwise,
the next part of the story and just to make it make sense.
Otherwise, you're swerving yourself out of a great angle, and you're swerving yourself out of money, in which case you're a fucking idiot.
And it also occurred to me during this, it's going to be Jarrett, Steiner, Christian, and Sting at ringside, which means it's not the perfect Horseman beatdown where they make the tag and then come in and beat him over, but it's still going to be 3-on-1.
Well, maybe. I've been waiting for that. I've given up on hope for that angle ever happening again. Jay Lethal, PD, Sanjay Dutt, Alex Shelley, and Frankie Kazarian had a 5-way. Winner got a shot at Senshi. I hated this. Your typical X Division bullshit move. The pinnacle of which was when, I believe it was Jay Lethal was going to pin Frankie Kazarian. The two men, it does not matter. Only the third man matters. And who was there to break it up but Sanjay Dutt? So Sanjay Dutt, realizing that there's a championship title shot on the line, realizes he's got to break up this pin. So does he lunge in and just attack the pile to break it up? Does he lunge in with a forearm? Does he perhaps kick a man? No. He runs toward them. He stops. He does a 180-degree turn. He jumps in the air and does a standing moonsault to break it up. And I was like, okay, that right there, had I not been who I am, having to follow this, I'd have just shut the show off. It just drove me crazy. You couldn't just fucking kick him. You had to do a move.
Had to do a move.
You know, the standing moonsault used to be cool.
Now it's just a move.
And I don't think I was the first person to ever do that because I would be giving myself way too much credit.
I strongly suspect you were not.
But I was a gymnast.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did the YWF in like 1992, I did the standing moonsault. And you know what? I did it it was the finish. It was like at the end of the match, I was like, okay, I'm going to do the big move now. I'm going to do a standing moonsault. And that was the fucking finish. You know what it means when you take a move that can be a finish and just break up a fucking pin with it? Nobody gives a shit. And that's why these X Division matches now, nobody gives a shit, and it's all the same stuff every single week. 5 guys, Sanjay Dutt, Jay Lethal, Shark Boy, here's a wacky dive, here's a bunch of stupid moves. Everybody, it's time to go, that was awesome. When 9 times out of 10 these days, it ain't even awesome anymore. That's the death of the X Division. Too many moves.
And you haven't even gotten to my favorite, most hated thing about this. Earlier in the show, Steiner and Jarrett laid out Jay Lethal, trying to find Christian backstage. So that's laying like a goof. So I figured he'd come out here and overcome the odds because, 2 weeks ago he had that match with Jarrett that was so awesome and it looked like he was going to be a big, huge name. No, he came out and he got pinned.
Yes. Every now and then, like sometimes this company does everything right and sometimes they just do everything wrong.
In this show, it was all there. In this one television program.
So then we had Cornette doing his final thing, and he came out for the big meeting and signed AMW versus James Gang versus Kazarian and Bentley versus Naturals, with the winners getting a shot at the tag titles. So, of course, the Naturals are going to win. Signed Runt versus Abyss. Signed the 3-way with Monty, Samoa Joe, and Rhino in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Next week, it's, oh, here we go, kids, Lethal and Dutt and Sabin versus Shelley and Johnny Devine and Kevin Nash. And think about this. When Nash first started doing this, the fear was he was going to kill the X Division. He's
saving the X Division.
He is. They have killed the X Division on their own.
He's keeping the X Division afloat.
This is the only reason this match is any interest, because what's Nash going to do in this match? There's actually intrigue to see it.
What wacky goofiness will he unfold before us?
Sure, if Nash weren't in there, it would just be the same fucking match we've seen
small
for
men doing
4
some moves.
years. So anyway, that's next week. Signed Christian versus Steiner next week, and then all 3 guys. I'm not even going to recap this. All you need to know is this was one of those things where they had to sign something that really didn't make a lot of sense. It was Cornette's job to try and say it with such passion that you felt it should be important. And then Cornette and Christian and Steiner all cut promos that were very, very passionate, and in the end said absolutely nothing. That's all this was. And then when it was over, Christian was leaving, and Jeff Jarrett came out of the crowd dressed as Sting and beat him up with Cornette standing right there and watching. And earlier in the evening, Cornette had said, hey, if Jarrett doesn't leave the building, he'll be fired. And, of course, will Jarrett be fired for this next week? No. Was Jarrett fired for putting gasoline in Sting's eyes at the pay-per-view? No. They've managed to take Jim Cornette and make him impotent in 3 weeks, which, congratulations, guys. That takes real talent. You've turned Jim Cornette into just nothing on this show.
Jim Cornette is now just a guy.
He is. He's just a guy he's Larry Zbyszko.
Really? Yeah, they're just redundant now.
Yeah, he's Larry Zbyszko. The deal was he was a goof. And Cornette, at least he tries, and I guess they sort of try and portray him as serious, but in the end, the way it's booked, he's a goof. Jarrett's still just around. He throws gasoline in eyes. He disobeys Cornette, and nothing happens. He'll just be there next week doing whatever. And it's little things like that you wonder why 900,000, the same 900,000 people are watching this show, and no one else tunes in and stays around. It's just shit like this. It's the little stuff.
So yeah, that was our Friday.
That's it, kids. Horrid. What a wretched night of pro wrestling.
In hindsight, at the time, I didn't.
I did. I opened up the show saying it was a wretched night of pro wrestling.
I was fervently aware of how horrible SmackDown was, but I thought the other 2 shows were okay. But now that I look back at them, I was wrong.
Just bad stuff. TNA was just a show, slightly better than ECW because there was a hot crowd for much of the show, not all of the show. Just a lot of build for the pay-per-view, but when it was over, it was a pay-per-view that not one person that does not normally buy a TNA pay-per-view will ever buy.
I don't think so.
Running on a treadmill to the pay-per-view company, the usual. Highlight of the show was Stevie J with a "Who are you to doubt Super Chico" sign, which is a goddamn good question, if I do say so myself. Samoa Joe, Rhino, and Monty Brown got into a brawl setting up their match, which, I don't know, they always do this. They're just in this brawl where it's just uncontrollable. Security hits the ring, and Tenay goes, "We'll see more of this on Sunday." And I'm like, why the fuck would I want to pay to see this?
I just saw it.
Not only did I just see it, but it was a 3-way brawl. Do I really want to pay to see these guys in a indecipherable battle? Can't we just have a match or something like that? Can't we, I don't know. Very down on life tonight. You know what's funny is somebody on the board was like, Barry sounds depressed in the news update about how cold TNA. I wasn't depressed.
You're just stating a fact.
I was stating a fact. It's cold.
TNA is cold.
Nobody gives a shit except the people that always watch the show. Mm-hmm. Listen, I never talk to anybody that goes, "Hey, have you watched TNA lately?" Never. I ask people that, and the answer is always no. Every single time.
I've said it before. I'm sure most of my friends are either not aware it exists or have literally never watched it.
Or have watched it and just stopped.
Most of my friends have not watched it.
Sean's watched some.
Sean's watched some.
And does he watch it anymore?
No.
Okay, so he watched it and stopped.
There you go.
Thank you. So then we had Nash, Shelley, and Devine versus Sabin, Lethal, and Sanjay Dutt. Even this was no fun because Nash really didn't do anything. I expected Nash hijinks. Instead, he just never got into the ring. And when he did, he got a little...
promptly taken out with a dropkick to the knee by Sanjay Dutt.
Sure.
This was their big payoff to the Kevin Nash kills all midgets feud.
No, it wasn't. It was just a match in the middle of the feud.
It annoyed me.
But Sabin pinned Devine, nothing match. Everyone's just stuck in the same goddamn... Actually, they're not even stuck in the same spot because the X Division's been killed.
Yeah, they're lower.
They're sinking. So Larry announced that Jay Lethal was being added to the X title match Sunday, which I didn't even know who the other two were. I know Senshi's a champion.
I was aware Senshi was champion. I kept waiting for them to announce who the other guy was. I was trying to think.
We don't know.
Head. He at one point they said Williams, and I quote
Williams.
So presumably Petey.
So there's a big money match there for you for the pay-per-view. So and then once again, Slick Johnson came in and ruined the joke by laughing at Larry's wig. Have they not figured it out yet?
Well, clearly they have not.
Every week, it's Larry coming out in that wig is funny. Okay, it's like look at Buster Keaton, classic star of the silent era. His gimmick was he never smiled. He never laughed at the comedy.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason.
That's part of why it was funny.
He even stated once he did a silent film, and it was one of his shorts, and I've actually seen this one, and he laughs in it, and he goes, everybody hated it, and so he never laughed again. It ruined the joke when he laughed. It all. Here's your history lesson for you kids. Buster Keaton actually started on the stage when he was like 5. He was very, very young. His parents did a stage routine. And they ended up getting their young son involved. And it involved often throwing the kid around. He was thrown in the
If you've ever seen Buster Keaton, you don't doubt this for a second.
He was thrown in the orchestra pit and shit like that or whatever. And they quickly determined that the audience did not find it funny when you threw a child around, except when you threw the child around and he was stone-faced. Like when you threw him into the orchestra pit and he just popped up with a blank look on his face. Everybody died with laughter when this happened. And his father discovered that, in fact, that was money when the kid didn't smile. So his father made sure that the child never smiled. And he would be physical with the child if the child smiled. He trained him to never smile.
That's terrible.
And so, well, when he grew up, he actually had trouble smiling. So this played
That's heartbreaking.
But he had a rough life, but he was a genius.
Didn't know that?
He was a genius. He may not have been a genius without the rough upbringing. Who knows?
Not. Wow.
But anyway, the point is that kills the comedy.
Yeah.
And you've seen it a million times with comedians where they tell a joke and they start laughing their own joke, and you're like,
bad.
Well, you just can't. Some guys can do it. I've seen a few that can do it. But 9 times out of 10, you start laughing at your own joke, and it fails.
Yeah.
And really, some comics, you can see them, and they won't laugh at any of their own jokes. And finally, then when they crack, that's the funniest of all.
Yeah.
Because they actually started. It's like Tenru.
I've seen that too.
It's like Tenru, the stone face. Tenru doesn't sell.
Yeah.
He never sells anything. And so at the end of the match, when he finally starts selling, everybody's like, Jesus Christ, Tenru's.
He's hurt.
He's hurt.
The unhurtable man.
So anyway, the point
Even
of all
on the
this,
show, right before Slick Johnson said whatever he said, there was a moment where where Larry was talking to Cornette, and Cornette finished his line, and he stopped and looked at Larry's wig, and then just shook his head and turned away.
He didn't say anything.
He didn't say anything. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. It was much better.
Yes. So anyway, they need to stop with this ruining the great comedy that is a wig on a wrestling show. Homicide faced Chris Daniels. It was good while it lasted. The Hernandez ran in for the Cracker Jack.
The Cracker Jack. It jacks up the cracker. This is the best name for a move I've ever heard.
Wow. So anyway, he beat him up with that, and that was that, and they're setting up for a match at the pay-per-view. Hopefully LAX wins because
oh God.
I'm sick of
Everyone on your knees, please. Pray.
AJ and Daniels are a fine team, but the lovemaking got to go. They were about ready to start humping. They're in the middle of the ring when AJ made the save for young Chris Daniels. So then we had Abyss killing Shark Boy. Throughout the show, Spike was in the rafters with a sign saying, "Let's do this match tonight."
There was one point where he was in the crowd with a sign that said, "Why wait for hard justice?" or something, and if they had not identified this man as a pro wrestler, I would have assumed he was just another fan.
He actually
was smaller and uglier than most of the fans, and the most negative star treatment you've ever seen. They were all ignoring him.
Yeah.
And then one person casually walked down the stairs, didn't say anything, but they turned and not smiling, not cheering. They calmly took a picture with a camera phone and then walked back up the stairs.
Yeah. Spike Dudley, we have often said he looks like a guy in the crowd. That's giving him too much credit. The 50% of the crowd was tanner and in better shape than Spike Dudley.
Yep.
And why they put him in the crowd, I've got no idea.
This is a horrible idea.
So anyway, the best part of this was when James Mitchell cut a promo calling Spike a little cockroach. And I was hoping he'd just call him a little cock.
Or cocksucker.
Sure, but he did.
These would have been better.
So,
you know he was thinking it.
Runt did a dive off the balcony onto Abyss, laid him out, and they're fighting at the pay-per-view.
He did this enormous dive.
Sold no buys.
This really was a huge dive. And if they had just ended it there, it probably would have been something awesome. Maybe, dare I say, special. They just kept fighting. They just kept going.
Let me tell you something. I am sick and goddamn tired of this bullshit.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette.
I'm not impersonating Tiny Tim out here.
No, he's not.
What the hell was that?
I just want to tell you what a fucking miserable fucking piece of shit you are, you goddamn no good cocksucker.
Do I come to where you work and slap the penis out of your mouth, huh?
Well.
Wow.
No, he does not, in fact. Speaking of Jim Cornette, he did commentary for the main event, which made it great. They did a skit with Eric Young prior to this, which is it was classic TNA. Eric Young said he had some gifts for them. The first was a Wendy's bag, of course, stemming from the famous Wendy's incident with Jim Cornette that approximately no fans know about, except for the hardest.
I had forgotten about it until you
hardcore.
mentioned it right now.
That's right. That should tell you something. Some liquor and a tennis racket. Cornette didn't want any of the gifts. He basically signed Young and Divine at the pay-per-view and said, "You better win."
He ain't winning. And no one's buying.
No, it didn't sell one buy. Steiner faced Christian. I could have sworn this was going to be a cage match, but it wasn't. And they had a match. It was all right. Not great.
It was fine.
It was fine.
It was just fine.
It was just fine. You know what it was? Fine. It was fine. And Jarrett hit the
Fine,
ring.
you say.
Jarrett hit the ring for the DQ. And once again, Cornette was made to look like an idiot. You know, Jarrett throws alcohol in dude's eyes. Jarrett gets banned from the building and told if anybody disobeys, they'll be fired. He just comes back, gets in a fight, runs in and does a DQ in the main event of the show with Cornette on commentary, and nothing happens. And just one of the little things, like
Same old
Same
shit. Old shit.
How can you invest in a show like this when it's so hard to take seriously? The best thing about the show was the commercial for Ultimate Fighter 4. That made me happy. Other than that, thumbs in the middle, slightly down.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. There's some good stuff, but certainly nothing to go out of your way to see.
Tonight was the TNA night, and of course, the plan was for myself, young Vincent, Buddy Wayne, and young Brent Kremen to show up for this pay-per-view. I sent Buddy an email, and I never heard back. I probably should have called him, but I think there was a part of me that just was not... I didn't want to go out of my way to get Buddy here. I figured if he answered the email and showed up, that was great. But if he didn't, maybe God was sending a message.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
And God undoubtedly sent a message this evening. Brent was scheduled to be here at 8, because of course the pay-per-view, we were starting the 8 o'clock showing and such. And he was going to take the bus, that sort of thing. And I, at 7:30, had finished all the required work and had a half-hour break, if you can call it that. And I decided to go to the store. It's an eating weekend, so I needed a little bit of food. So I went up to the store and I got milk. And I purchased some ice cream. And I purchased a frozen meal. There's a very attractive young lass there, by the way. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Good times.
I thought of that because for some reason the Serelda match popped into my mind, and I thought, anyway.
I'll wait till we get to that match.
I was just thinking, this woman's got a job in this business, and I just saw a woman at the fucking Safeway that was hotter than anyone on this TNA pay-per-view, and everyone in the Diva Search put together. And
she's bagging groceries.
She was shopping. She was using a Safeway club card to get something, and I just felt bad for this young lass. But so regardless, I got all this food, and I returned here at 7:50, 10 minutes before the 8 o'clock arrival time of Brent Kremen. He was not here. So I went inside and I began to eat my ice cream, and you had sent a text saying you were going to be late. And of course, I normally am annoyed when you get late, but I was double annoyed today because instead of just starting the pay-per-view and allowing you to miss the first part of it, because of what happened on the pay-per-view, I knew that you had to watch the first part of it, so I could not start the pay-per-view late.
Fair enough.
Plus the fact that you being late required me, theoretically, since he was not here yet, to spend time alone with Brent in this house. So at about 7:58 or so, the phone rang, and it was Brent Kremen. And he said, "Are you there yet?" and I picked up the phone, and I said, yes, I'm here. He goes, I showed up 10 minutes ago, and you weren't there, so I panicked, and I went to a neighbor. I went and visited one of your neighbors. Brent apparently went to a neighbor's house, knocked on the door, let himself in, asked to use their computer so he could look up my phone number on the internet and call to find out where the fuck I was because he was in a panic.
Because he was here 10 minutes early and you were not here.
15 minutes early, actually,
15
because
minutes early.
I got here 10 minutes early. This was tragic. This was a tragedy to young Brent Kremen. So he went and fucking bothered a neighbor.
A complete stranger.
A complete stranger.
Took it upon himself to thrust himself into their lives.
Anybody who's listened to the show can just imagine the scenario. And when I heard that, I was like, I was so upset. So anyway, I explained to him that if he ever went to a neighbor again, he would never return to this house. So that was the beginning. So then you showed up a little bit late, and Brent was in very rare form, like never before. I mean, even when he was drunk, he was never this annoying.
Oh, yeah.
No, there was just something about tonight that he took it to a brand new level, and
He just wouldn't shut up.
Just on and on and on, and I'll let you explain what happened because let's just go on.
Well, as I said, Brent would not shut up. He would make a bad joke, then make another bad joke, and then thinking we had not heard it, he would repeat the bad joke. We just sat there. Bryan and I were silent. Every once in a while, we'd ask him, Brent, could you please be quiet? We're trying to watch the show. We're trying to listen to this promo. We're trying to pay attention to the wrestling program we came to watch. And Brent would just prattle on and prattle on. Every lancashire, every same joke he makes every month. When they said don't fire Eric, they said he was already fired. They threw him in the garbage truck. And I looked at him and he said they threw Eric Bischoff in the garbage truck. And I said, you confused Eric Young with Eric Bischoff.
Which he did not.
No, he was trying to be funny.
This is the game that Brent Kremen plays. Brent Kremen has grown up and
it's debatable.
He's had a lot of people baby him, I guess is the best way to describe it. He has been coddled to his entire life, and I am not going to coddle him. And I basically explained to him that, Brent, we're here to watch the TNA pay-per-view. You were invited over to watch it. And there are people here that don't show up because of you. Tony does not come over because of you.
Sean refuses to be in the same room with him.
Sean refuses to come over because of you. Vince does not like you, but I...
And by the way, the last time I had to drive him home, he asked me, do you like me? And I said, no, Brent, I don't like you. So there's no mystery there.
But I invite him over because I just do. I just...
Because you enjoy chaos.
No, I don't enjoy chaos.
You consider Brent being here a form of an adventure.
No, really? Because tonight I would have kept him in the house. I have a strange understanding of Brent, and thus I am fine inviting him over. This is too complicated to get into right now. But the point is, I said, you know what, Brent, we're here for TNA, and you're trying to turn this into the Brent Kremen show. And it's not the Brent Kremen show.
Yes.
You're not funny. You're annoying us. And when you make a joke that's not funny and we don't respond, and you make the joke again and we don't respond, if you say the joke 42 times, on number 42, we're not going to laugh. We're just going to get more and more upset. So, long story short, this kept going on and on and on and on. And finally, I said, Brent, I know the bus line is still going until 9 o'clock. I would like you to leave now and go get on the bus and go home. At which point, he momentarily shut up and apologized. And this lasted maybe
30 seconds.
30 seconds. And finally, he was. I don't want to say forcibly. You almost forcibly removed him, and I had
At some point, I turned to him and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Brent, shut the fuck up!" It was 9:30 at night in a condominium with your neighbors all around, and I couldn't take any more. You politely explained to Brent you could not take any more. Something was coming on he was not interested in, and you convinced him to wait outside on the bench. So Brent left. Brent went outside. Brent went to sit in the bunch outside your front door, and I guess he eventually went for a walk.
He did. He said he was going to walk to the convenience store, which was just completely fine. So he left for a great length of time, and the great is the operative word. And finally he returned, and there was another incident which involved you grabbing him by the neck.
This way, he knocked on the door. I opened the door to let him in, and he walked in, and what did he say? He said something that's not apologetic.
Yes.
Something I've been doing some thinking, or I think I figured out the problem.
Yes.
He said something like that, and I cannot take it anymore. And I grabbed him by the neck to throw him back outside.
And I had...
You intervened. You said, Vince, no violence.
Yes.
And I yielded. It's the only word I can use.
Yes.
And I relented, and I stepped back.
And
then the debate began.
There became a debate. He had been walking, and he started to think about why people like their friends. And basically, Brent figured out why he liked people and projected that onto us. I don't even know what the fuck he said, but none of these things explain why I invite Brent to my house. And I tried to explain this to him, and I don't want to drone on and on about the whole situation, but the gist of it is he was removed from the house 3 times. Only the first time was involuntary, when I told him to leave or he would never return. The other 2 times he knew he would be trouble, and so he voluntarily left. But the point is, you have all heard the last of Brent Kremen on this show, and so far there's a chance that he will return to Club Chico. I have not completely banned him from the premises, but I made it very clear that we were coming in here to do a radio show, and if I heard him, he would never return to Club Chico, ever. And the funny thing is, I can hear him right now. He appears to be talking to himself, but I'm just going to ignore that. And
He's in the living room. We've shut ourselves in the studio, locked the door.
Yes.
I'm contemplating moving a bookcase in front of the door to further seal him out.
He has a friend coming to pick him up. The friend may be here for all I know. I don't know who else he would possibly be talking to. But he is carrying on a conversation with either himself or another human being out there in the living room, and that is fine. But we are going to do a show here, goddammit, because we cannot be stopped, and we will not be joined by Brent, and we will not be joined by Brent anytime in the near future. So for those of you that have not been tuning in because of Brent Kremen, you will now be able to tune into every single show. And for the small handful of you that are very, very upset that he will not be on, I'm sorry, but you can
have to deal with
you can contact Brent Kremen via his MySpace. I believe it's MySpace/The Kremen, and you can book him for your pay-per-view party and have a good time. So, with that said, we have got some excitement to talk about in regards to the TNA pay-per-view, as there was a fire. The TNA Impact Zone became engulfed in an inferno. And
a little strong.
Well, that's the way it was sort of explained during what happened was, during the first match, it was Eric Young versus Johnny Devine, and Eric Young was actually on Wrestling Observer Live, for those of you that did not hear it, shortly after the incident, and he was apparently having this match with Johnny Devine, and Johnny Devine made a cover, and Eric Young on his back looked up and noticed that there was flames coming from the catwalk, or the rafters. And he said, Johnny, the roof is on fire, or something of that nature. And the fire extinguishers came out and began spraying the fire, and smoke and, I guess, fire extinguisher exhaust began to fill the ring and the arena. And TNA simply continued to give them time cues. They were not told what to do. They just kept doing their match in a fog. And suffice to say, they did a pretty goddamn good job.
All things considered, this is a darn fine match.
And the fans, I think, because of the excitement of the fire, it added to the fun and games involved in this match, and they were having the time of their life.
Oh, God. There was a point in this match where, keep in mind, the building is aflame. The smoke is filling the room. These are dangerous things for human beings.
Sure.
They didn't show the fire. I'm sure it wasn't that great, but regardless, their response to this potentially tragic situation was to chant all together, the roof is on fire. Which is great because the roof was, in fact, on fire.
Sure.
So that made me extensively happy.
And then as they were obscured in a fog, a chant of, "You can't see us."
You can't see us.
Broke out.
One of them, Divine or Young, one of them should have done the Cena thing with his hand, but it still worked.
So they were in the ring having this match, and it was a hell of a lot of fun because of the insanity of the building. And let me tell you, we were on the air when this was going on, and I could not see the show, but Dave at first thought this had to be some sort of angle, and we were burying the company for some Russo-rific angle in the opening match, and why are they using fire extinguishers and gimmicks here in this opening match? And then as I was doing the show, everyone in the chat was keeping me abreast of the situation, so to speak. And suddenly I started getting these IMs about the buildings on fire.
Now,
I'm like,
was Dave watching the show while doing Observer Live?
yeah.
Okay.
But it went to a we'll be right back and a bunch of video packages. So the people in the building were communicating to people on the internet before people watching on TV knew it was happening. So anyway, I very quickly got confirmation, I will say, that the building was in fact on fire.
Well, it amuses me that Dave would think that. And Dave's seen much more wrestling than I have, so but it never crossed my mind that this is not a real fire.
No.
So
we're doing the show, and the best part was we had a caller on the air, and he was asking this question, and I could not wait any longer, and I said, I hate to interrupt, but the building's on fire. And Dave was flabbergasted, and the caller just was like, wow. And then he kept asking his question.
No doubt having something to do with
Wrestling Observer
Lex Luger.
Live is the most surreal radio show in the entire world.
Trumping even this one.
And there's a big thread on the board about tonight's Observer Live and certain callers on the show that a lot of people were very annoyed with. And I will say this about the callers on Wrestling Observer Live. Part of the charm of Wrestling Observer Live is just weird phone calls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always somebody weird calling in, and there's always some sort of wackiness, and the show just would not be the show without the wackiness. But with that said, I would like everybody on our board to do me a favor. And that is, if you're going to call into the show and you're going to ask 10 minutes worth of questions, if we have a guest on the air, please at least ask one question as it regards the guest. Because poor Eric Young was sitting on the phone in an office in the middle of the TNA arena, which at any moment could catch on fire for all we know, and sat there for 10 minutes and nobody asked him one question, and I felt so bad for the guy.
Aww.
I'm like, you're sitting here listening to questions that have absolutely nothing to do with you or TNA. So, if you've got non-guest related questions, that's fine, but at least ask the guest one question so the poor fucking guy doesn't feel bad. So
even a how you doing?
How you doing, Eric Young? And about that Bob Sapp fight coming up in actually Bob Sapp's retired, but you know what I mean. So
yes.
That's my but anyway, this fan did not seem to be concerned at all that the fucking building was burning down.
Yes.
So we followed this live on the air, and it was some real excitement, let me tell you.
I don't doubt that.
But
particularly that's the kind of thing that actually be more exciting if all you're getting is first-person text accounts.
Sure, we were
at the moment. You can't see anything.
I couldn't see the show. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
You can't hear the tone of anyone's voice. You can't really ask specific questions. You can just get bits and pieces of what's the word? Sketchy information.
Sure, just sketchy information from the building. Developing story.
Yes.
So. And by the way, I would like to note, as a multitasker, I was doing the radio show, getting IMs live from wherever, and also updating the front page of the website with the breaking news. So that's right. But anyway, so we were covering that, and then later I watched it, and it was just as exciting watching it the second time. The fire in the rafters was not big. There was visible flame, don't get me wrong. But it was not like the roof was on fire, and that made the comedy so much better because after airing about 74 Sting promos, they finally cut to a shot outside, and there was a fire truck. Don West and Mike Tenay were out there, and Mike Tenay was I guess he made it seem like legitimately the building had been on fire, and like all four walls were burning down, and somehow these brave fans were still inside, there to the bitter end, watching this Eric Young match. But the highlight was just Don West, the reason he's so great is because he's like a child. He was so excited. He was jumping up and down, and he was shaking, and he had this his eyes were wide, and he had this gigantic grin, and he had the mic. And Mike Tenay was trying to address the situation, and Don West was desperate to get word in about this fire. There's this fire in the building. And he just had such... It really seemed like the entire...
Yes.
Like all of Orlando... You know what it was like? If you imagine if you were calling a pay-per-view and all of Florida broke off from the continental U.S. and was floating out into the fucking Atlantic Ocean and you had to cover this, that's how Don West was covering the story. And that made the whole thing 500,000 times better.
And he was standing there next to Mike Tenay, who you and I have often discussed. Mike Tenay is never not Mike Tenay.
No.
And he was covering this actual news story, this breaking news event, this completely unscripted tragedy's too strong, but surprise.
Sure.
And he was just in Mike Tenay mode.
He was.
He was.
No, he wasn't.
He was putting over the fire. Is what he was doing. He was building the fire as the company's next big star.
You made no sense there because he wasn't in Mike Tenay mode. He was just being Mike Tenay. I have met Mike Tenay at Cauliflower Alley. He's been on this show, and he's always Mike Tenay.
Yeah.
This was like when Mike Tenay goes home and has dinner with his wife, this is how he is.
Yes.
And I think it's the same way with Don West.
Probably.
In fact, I'm almost certain. I can only imagine Don West on Christmas. I would like I would like home video of that.
How about Don West on an Easter egg hunt?
Sure, anything of that nature. But they had to waste some time, and before they left the building, that was another great part. Was Tenay and West are at the booth, and they're trying to hype up the pay-per-view, but their eyes are constantly darting everywhere.
Particularly Don West.
Well, it was whenever Tenay was talking, Don West is just looking everywhere. And whenever Don West is talking, Tenay is more subtle about it. Tenay's listening, and he scrunches up his face like he always does, but every now and then his eyes dart towards the ring
As he
and
sees
such.
people filing out of the building thinking, shit, maybe we should go.
Sure, and then whenever Tenay started to talk, Don West is not subtle.
No.
Don West looks up at the rafters.
Plants both hands flat on the table, looking up, looking over.
He's
looking confused, looking scared.
He's literally a living comic book
He is a
character.
cartoon.
And that's what he was. And so they finally leave, and they had to waste time, so they sent Eric Young over to cut a promo. And then they sent Monty Brown over to cut a promo. And I think the Monty Brown thing was to send a message to Monty Brown, because there's been a lot of concern about Mr. Brown lately because they don't like his goofy promos. And they've been trying to get him to cut serious promos. And then when they turn the camera on, he does the same old shit.
I see.
And it is always the same old shit. So they sent him out here, and he seriously had to cut like a 5-minute promo. And it was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. He just had to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and it was the same shit over and over again, and it just kept going. And I thought, you are being sent a message here, young man, that your promos suck, and now you're being thrown out cold on live TV, and this is what's happening to you. And it was actually night and day from Tenay, who had to waste time, and somehow managed to talk for 15 minutes about nothing.
He did. He ran down the pay-per-view card that we'd all already knew what was coming in. He ran down the participants of the 4-way tag, which ended up being canceled due to the fire. But he, in great detail, broke down their strengths, their weaknesses, their momentum, what they were doing going into it, what they had to gain. It's really remarkable.
Sure.
Total pro.
So anyway, finally everybody was allowed back in, and they slowly began to file back into the building. There was a referee who apparently had just been sitting in the ring the whole time waiting for action. And they got back to work. So the interesting thing was Douglas did a promo with the Naturals, and then they never aired that match. So apparently we will get it on TV at the taping.
That's what I would assume.
Of all the matches to get canceled, the Naturals. So
I'm fine with that.
There you go. Borash interviewed Alex Shelley. As those of you are aware, Kevin Nash is out with a neck injury. Kevin Nash, this is a great story.
Oh, good, because
Okay.
I don't know anything other than what I saw on the pay-per-view.
This is not a rant on the board, but it is a rant about several threads actually on the board. This is the deal, kids. Last weekend, everybody knew there was going to be steroid testing at Raw on Monday. There was going to be drug testing. Hulk Hogan claimed he had a knee injury, which was in fact a real injury, but when you're Hulk Hogan, you always have injuries.
Yes.
He skipped that Raw that just happened to have drug testing, and I would like to note also that on Sunday, or Monday, or whenever I did the Figure 4 Daily Update, I said, Hulk Hogan is skipping the show tonight, he will not be there, and I guarantee that he will be announcing that he'll be doing SummerSlam by Wednesday. And I'm not sure if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but sure as shit, Hulk Hogan announced, by God, I'm going to be doing that fucking match. And not only that, I'm going to be back on Raw this coming Monday. So all he did was skip one show, and it happened to be the show with drug testing. And for some reason, we have a number of people on the board who just cannot believe that that's the reason that Hogan skipped out. And it amazes me.
Well, don't you think you're being a little cynical?
No.
Me neither.
I mean, it's so
It's
transparent.
It is plain.
It is so ungodly, plain, and transparent that it flabbergasts me that anybody could go, maybe he did have a knee injury. Maybe he's not under the contract, this, that, and the other thing. Hulk Hogan is under contract for 20 years. He would be drug tested just like anybody else. The levels that he would have if he were on steroids are going to be a hell of a lot higher than he would fucking get for hormone replacement therapy because 1 and 1 is natural. And if you need a replacement therapy, it's to get you to 1-1. If you go in there and you're at 10-1, I don't give a fuck what your doctor says. That is more than you would need for any sort of rehabilitation. You're fucked. So that's why he skipped out on drug testing, and it amazes me that anybody would think...
Would question that.
Now, with that said, for those of you that cannot believe that Hulk Hogan would possibly skip out for that reason, you will be pleased to know that Kevin Nash called TNA this weekend. He said, "I was at home, and I hurt my neck. I am not going to be able to grapple Sunday at the pay-per-view, where I am scheduled to lose clean to Chris Sabin." TNA believed this story. They believe he is really hurt.
Poor Kev.
That's why he could not show up and job clean to Chris Sabin. He hurt his neck at home. So it's just a week of unfortunate injuries to top stars.
That's sad.
It's
legends.
It is.
Former world champions.
Legends just falling apart left and right for really no good reason. So, anyway, he showed up in a wheelchair and a neck brace, and Alex Shelley took his place Chris Sabin. Yeah, Alex Shelley took his place in the match with Chris Sabin. They had a much better match than Kevin Nash would have.
Indeed.
And sure as shit, Chris Sabin also beat Alex Shelley clean. As clean can be in TNA. And this was, it was fine. The problem with the show is after the fire, they had to completely cut the Naturals match. And then I think they tried to put everything else on the show. And I guess the idea was that the title matches, the tag title match, the world title match, and also the Samoa Joe three-way were all given the same amount of time they would have gotten without the fire. And the rest of the matches were all cut short. And it was pretty obvious. This one was cut short, seemed rushed, so ended up just being just fine. And really everything else on the show, also with the exception of those title matches, seemed rushed. So that was the situation there. But it was fine. It was actually...
one thing about this match, and now I understand better of why it happened, but although the fire probably had a lot to do with it too, and having time taken away, this match seemed a lot less choreographed than what these guys usually do.
Yes.
It felt more like a competition than an exhibition, like
yes. What
they usually do. So in a weird way, it was better than their usual stuff. So, yeah, thumbs up for this. Long story short.
That was a hell of a little monologue right there, Vince.
Appreciate it.
Runt faced Abyss in a match which was cut short, and they cut short stuff early, and unfortunately did not cut short anything at the end. You see a lot of sick things in wrestling, and to me it's like Matt Hyson, Spike Dudley, whatever you want to call him, he ain't a dumb guy. I think he was a teacher.
He was a teacher.
He got a teaching degree or whatever the hell the deal was, and he got into wrestling, and I just don't understand. And I guess it's just, I don't know what it is really. He's about 140 pounds. He is ungodly white. He is fantastically skinny. He's got a new look which consists of a mohawk, so he looks like Jens Pulver, although Jens Pulver has about 15 pounds on him. Comprehend that for a moment.
Yeah.
He goes out there, and he's not the best cruiserweight worker in the world. He's a small WWE-style cruiserweight. And he goes in there, and he gets his head shoved into thumbtacks. They did a spot where Abyss put his head, he put him face first in thumbtacks and then stomped on his head, driving thumbtacks into the forehead and the face of young Spike Dudley. And then he gave him just the fucking most brutal black hole slam onto these tacks you've ever seen. And
You're forgetting the press slam.
Oh, the press slam. I wasn't even paying attention to that. I was paying attention to TNA.
Yes, Abyss picked up Brother Runt and threw him high into the air on a press slam. It was more of a press launch, and Runt came down from orbit on his face in the tax, and Mike Tenay made the funniest screaming noise ever,
He-
and then immediately screamed again, and it was even funnier.
Yes, we need a drop of Mike Tenay's...
Please get Mike Tenay's scream as a drop.
Whatever the hell noise he made, we need a drop of that, but that was some funny stuff.
This is the point. Brent was gone, and we were both furious with him and ready to snap, and we so needed something to laugh at.
And that was
it.
And
Mike Tenay provided this scream, and we were in tears. We were... What was that?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with it was it just it was Mike Tenay legitimately freaking out. It wasn't the fake. Every now and then you'll get a fake Mike Tenay, and this was a real one, and it was well deserved. But anyway, just a match where when it was over, it was like, I know I retired. I know why it's going to take at least $100 to get me back into the ring with no thumbtacks whatsoever and no big bumps. And I just watched and I thought, why? Just why?
And I have no answer.
I don't know, but just brutal. So Samoa Joe, Rhino, and Monty Brown had all the time they needed. It was a Falls Count Anywhere match, and it was fucking great.
Oh, my God.
All that can be said is they beat the fuck out of each other.
These three big, scary, tough men wailed on each other for 15 minutes or so. Just brutal. Everything was just stiff and physical and nasty and scary and intimidating and wonderful and beautiful and great.
Well,
yes,
it was a hell of a match, and they brawled all over the building. It was one of those matches where every time you turn around, somebody was beating the shit out of somebody.
There was a great moment. They kind of brawled through the crowd and then came out to the ramp, and Rhino and Joe are fighting the ramp, and Rhino knocked Joe down, and he celebrated, and then I think a chair came flying in from off screen and plastered him in the face.
Yes. Just beat the hell out of each other. They ended up on the ramp, and Rhino tried some sort of dive and missed and went through a table. And then it ended up with, I guess, Joe giving Monty an STO off the ramp through a table, killing him. And that was the end of that. Monty Brown, he worked hard. He was the weak link in this match, obviously. But he tried hard, and he did a lot of things you don't normally see from Monty Brown. He did some big dives.
Tried a drop kick.
Did a drop kick, went over the guardrail. I think, I don't know what it is. He's not signed his new deal. I think he wants to go to WWE. I think he may know there may not be a good chance since they showed no interest in him before. So I think that he may be trying to do his best so that, they may pick up on that, or if all else fails, he'll just be re-signed with TNA. But
yeah,
he was working hard here. I got to give him that. But
he was working his ass off, and I don't think he dragged down the match at all. I think it was just fine. It was above great, just fine. It was great.
He didn't drag it down, but he didn't add anything to it.
I don't know. He did some cool stuff. But regardless, this three-way was a definite thumbs up and the best match in the show.
May have been. There was another.
There was one other close contender. It was the exact two matches that we thought would be best were the ones that were best.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a song here on the subject of Samoa Joe, but I can't find the goddamn thing, so we may not be able to play it tonight. But it relates to this show, so hopefully if I can find it, we'll play it. But next match was Gail, Kim, and Sorelda. That's right. They of all the matches to cut, they did not cut this one. And it was horrible. And I thought they were going to give them a minute, and they gave them about 5, which was 4 minutes and 59 seconds too many. I would have preferred a 1 second 3 count and just ended it immediately. Sorelda is really bad.
She's very, very bad.
Horrifyingly bad. Fucked up all sorts of things, including the finish. And Gail Kim is so obviously the babyface in this feud.
I was just going to say.
Yet she still works heel. And everyone just sort of sits there. Nobody gives a shit about Sorelda. And it was just...
Sorelda is a large, muscular, not classic beauty woman. And she's just towering over Gail Kim, who is small and athletic and feminine and hot.
I like how you have no problem normally calling people ugly or fat or anything like that, but this you're being just very...
I'm trying. I'm in a polite mood. I'm not even burying Brent like I should. But regardless, yes, the crowd has no interest in cheering for Sorelda. They like to chant, "She's a man." They don't care when the dominion of Gail Kim is beating her up, and it was just a recipe for utter disaster, and that's what happened.
Yeah, this was best left off the pay-per-view, but what the hell can you do?
Thumbs down.
Thumbs so far down. Senshi versus Jay Lethal versus Petey Williams. Here's the deal. I mentioned before that the X Division's dead. This is one of the reasons. Everybody needs to go watch that Ring of Honor 6-man with the Dragon Gate guys again. Because for those of you that don't watch Dragon Gate or have not watched a lot of Dragon Gate, you can watch that match and there's 6 men and they're doing nothing but high spots. They're doing nothing but high spots. Yet, you watch the match and by the end of it, you pretty much know the personalities of all 6 guys involved. You know who's a dick. You know who's a babyface. Certain guys have their certain cocky mannerisms and that sort of thing. And the high spots, they're nothing but high spots, but they build to bigger and more complex high spots as the match. It's really a beautiful thing to behold. This was the exact opposite. This was 3 guys that are just 3 guys that were just doing a bunch of moves in a wrestling ring. Senshi, what do we know about him? That he is a skinny Bruce Lee-like guy who kicks people.
Yep.
What do we know about Jay Lethal? That he's a guy
who always looks bored.
What do we know about Petey Williams? He used to be on Team Canada, and now he's just a guy. And you've got 3 guys in there that are just guys. And the TNA audience, thank God for Orlando, I'll say it again, they know what to do in a match like this. They sit there and they watch the match. When somebody does a spot, they all clap. When a babyface makes a comeback, they all politely cheer. When something particularly good happens, they chant, "That was awesome," even though now 9 times out of 10 it's not awesome.
It was merely good.
They're doing their job. They're
the best fans in America.
They're working. They're part of their
As a matter of fact, they are.
They're workers in this match. And you know, they don't boo the heel because there are no heels. It's just 3 men doing wrestling moves in a ring. And it's over and you forget about it immediately. And that's exactly what this was. And it's the reason this division it was great for a while because it was something different. But now it's not different. We have seen it a million times. They reacted like this was a match they've seen 8 million times before, and it was because was.
Because they have. Yeah. The only thing I can really add to that is Jay Lethal. After he had the match, you know, I've mentioned the match with Jarrett before, and then they killed him in that 5-way for this title shot, and then somehow he got thrown back in and he got pinned again. And there's a point here where he was in a sharpshooter where they're doing some spot with Low-Ki, but his selling sucks. When you're in a sharpshooter, it's supposed to convey to the audience that I am in pain, my back hurts, and my legs hurt. He conveyed, I am face down on the mat. Perhaps I will take a nap while I'm here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thumbs down. And also, there was no... This, particularly after the other 3-way, just made this look even shittier.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they decided this needed to be a 3-way, except they needed more guys on the show.
They needed to get Jay Lethal on the show.
One of the problems...
And,
yes.
Well, the finish, of course, Senshi pinned Lethal to retain his belt, and Petey and Senshi got in each other's face, so I guess that's the match they're building to, and you immediately said, no one wants to see that.
Yeah. They're sitting there yelling at each other, and it's like, okay, great. The 80,000 people will tune in and see it on TV, or the 800,000 people, and the 20,000 people will keep buying the pay-per-views, but no one's buying it for this match.
At least Lethal would have been a fresh face. He would have been something kind of new, and he's been losing and being beaten up lately, so that hasn't helped, but it would have been better.
You want to know what the problem with TNA is?
Yes.
This, everybody, is the problem with TNA. And it's a problem that will not be remedied. Everybody, whenever you hear an interview with the guys in TNA, they're always like, God, it's so great. The backstage area is so nice. Everybody's cool. This, that, and the other thing. Whereas when you listen to a WWE guy, there's a lot of bitching about the locker room. You know, when you used to hear old interviews in WCW when it was hot, there was the same sort of bitching. And the problem with TNA is it is too nice. It's just too nice. This is the fucking wrestling business.
Everyone's perfectly comfortable where they are.
They're trying.
They're just happy to be there.
They're trying. They go out of their way to try and make everybody happy. We're going to make sure you all get on this show. We're going to make sure you all get an equal shot.
Yep.
We're going to make sure you guys that have been here the longest are going to get the belts.
Yep.
We're going to do all this nice stuff, and everybody's going to be happy. It's shit for business. I mean, seriously, the Naturals have been there 4 years, so they're going to get pushed to the tag titles. That's your justification for putting the tag belts on them, because they've been there the longest. Okay, your justification for turning a perfectly fine singles match into a clusterfuck 3-way is just to make one dude happy to get him another payoff on the show. That's all fine and good if you want to make everybody happy, but you're running on a treadmill. And they've been running on a treadmill for 4 years, and you know what? Here, this is the funny thing. Goldberg's having talks with TNA, and let's just say they sign him to a $1.5 million deal, and he's signed to 2 dates a month for $1.5 million. He comes in, he destroys guys in 2 squash matches, and he destroys guys on pay-per-view, and he gets $1.5 million. Everybody will fucking cry to high heaven about how unfair this is, how he doesn't deserve this, blah, blah, blah.
He's got to pay his dues.
And meanwhile, if you really think about it, if there's one guy that can available right now that can maybe put this fucking company on the map, it's Bill Goldberg. Coming in and being the WCW Bill Goldberg. That would actually get casual fans talking.
Oh, absolutely.
And they would be watching it to see it. But meanwhile, everybody in TNA will cry. And that's what's funny. In WCW, when it was at the highest and everybody was crying, there was a reason it was at its peak. Because all those guys on top were really making money.
Yes.
And all those guys that were not on top were not making money. And, it doesn't always have to be a cutthroat, evil business. And there was a point where you should have started elevating guys in TNA. But, it wasn't... It was... Hulk Hogan was making a shitload of money. He was making a shitload of money. And most of the guys bitching, the Billy Kidmans, they weren't going to make any money.
Yeah.
No matter how far up. And Billy Kidman was pushed up the ladder, but that was that's
another discussion.
Another story for a different day. But TNA needs to just start fucking putting the hammer down. Okay, This is what we're going to do. This is just going to get over. The rest of you can just fuck off.
Their job as a promotion is not to make their wrestlers as happy as possible. It's to put on the best show they can.
It's to make the most money.
Yeah.
And
they are failing.
It's tough to do that with everybody smiling. AJ Styles and Chris Daniels versus LAX for the tag titles. LAX, very, very hot. They lost this match, and I will not complain because they lost a hell of a match.
Yeah.
And this, I don't know. This may have been the best match on the show.
I wouldn't argue with that. I would argue it just because for the first 3 or 4 minutes they botched a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's
none
true.
of it was disastrous. It was clear that the spot had gone wrong, but no one stood there confused, looking like, oh God, what do we do?
Hernandez is not at the level of the other three.
No,
but when used correctly, he's fine. There was one problem. I'm a huge fan of Chris Daniels.
Okay,
but I have a criticism of him. He did a spot with Hernandez. He was trying to jump off the top rope and hit Hernandez with a Frankensteiner and send him over to the top of the floor.
Right.
And Hernandez was inside the ring, so this, that, and the other thing, and it got fucked up. And I blame Chris Daniels. Because Hernandez, why the fuck would you put Hernandez in the situation to try and take a complicated spot like that? Mm-hmm. You know the guy's somewhat green. You know he's not at the level with everybody else, so don't put him in position to take a spot like that. That's your fault.
That's fair.
He didn't fuck it up. You expected him to do something he was not able to do, and it's your job as the better worker to carry that guy through the match. Daniels did not do that in that situation, so I cannot completely blame Hernandez for that spot. So anyway, they had a hell of a match for what it was. They cut off AJ forever. He finally made the hot tag to Daniels. It was great stuff. This was like one of those AMW matches that all the near falls at the end, the WrestleMania finish, but this one didn't go too long.
No.
Maybe you could say it went a minute too long, but this was not like your usual AMW match, which goes 5 minutes too long, or your fucking ridiculous overbooked main event on this show, which we'll get to in a moment. But this was good stuff. I actually gave this and the Samoa Joe match. I gave them both 4 stars, so take your pick, whichever one you thought was better.
I would easily agree that they're both 4-star matches is good stuff. And like I say, after the 3 minutes or so of the slow start, just awesome stuff. And Hernandez, as bad as he ended up looking at the botch spots, he completely redeemed himself by the end. Yeah,
he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He may have, I can't fault them for putting him in this position, and he's doing fine. He's, like I said, not at the level of those other guys, but come on. There's AJ Styles, Chris Daniels, and fucking Homicide.
That's a very high level.
If you can
hang with them.
If you don't drag down a match with those 3, you're fine.
Yes.
So then we had the main event, Jarrett and Sting. Scott Steiner was in Jarrett's corner. Christian was in Sting's corner for the title. And I think most everyone knew going in that this was the time Christian needs to turn on Sting. And that is what happened. However, they took the most circuitous route getting there, if I may use such a term on this program, and it was absurd. First,
they ruined it.
It was, first off, Jarrett's matches are always overbooked. And I was watching this match, and for like the first 10 minutes, I was like, Jarrett's really doing a hell of a job tonight. He is a hell of a performance by Jarrett tonight. A lot of people bitch about the position he's in, but he can work. He can work at the level of a TNA world champion. But it always just breaks down to this bullshit every single time. And I think that's one of the reasons people get so upset, is because you ruin something that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
The only way this could have been ruined more is if Christian did not turn on Sting. As it was ruined by everything. Let me see if I can get everything that happened here. First off, you had the two guys outside, and they got involved. First, the referee was distracted, and a chair got involved, and then a belt got involved, and then the ref woke up, and then he ejected Christian, and then he ejected Steiner, and then he took a bump. And I should note that in the midst of this, Steiner hit him in the leg with a chair, and Jarrett worked it over for 5 minutes, and then put him in a 2-minute figure four. And Sting, upon escaping, began to come back, and not even a hint of a limp.
Nope.
And normally, I think that a lot of people overanalyze wrestling and shit like that, as far as, oh my God, he blah, blah, blah. I've seen real fighting, and sometimes it's always the argument with head dropping in All Japan. He got dropped on his head and jumped right back up. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And you can be dropped on your head and jump right back up. It is possible. But this is, again, another argument for another time. But this was too much. He fucking sold. He had been beaten on in the leg for fucking 5 minutes, and then a 2 minute, and then he just jumps up and starts running. It was worse. It was worse because Don West was trying to sell for him.
Yes.
He's like, still favoring that leg, when he wasn't. He was just running. And I thought, oh, Christ, now you're calling attention to it.
And it would have been even better if he had done like some kind of big Superman no-sell thing. It's like Jarrett started kicking his leg and he suddenly fired up and ignored it. But no, he just started walking around.
He just started running.
Yeah.
He started running around. So then the ref took a bump, and then Steiner came back, and then Sting came back, and they did the first tease. Christian was there in the middle of the ring, and Sting and Jarrett were both down, and they were teasing he was going to hit Sting, but he didn't. He hit Jarrett, and everyone just died. And then he walked out, and there was more bullshit back and forth, a scorpion death lock on Sting, and then Jarrett hit the stroke, and then Steiner came back with a guitar, and then Jarrett grabbed the guitar and beat up both.
Only imagine how long it took to put all this together.
Yes, it was anyway. So they beat back and forth, and then finally Christian told Sting to go up top, and as he was coming off, he hit him. And the only thing that saved this was he waylaid him.
Poor Sting.
He fucking killed this 47-year-old preacher with a guitar shot right to the noggin, and it was brutal.
Oh God.
And then smote him. In fact,
sure.
is the best the operative term here. But so Jarrett crawled over and got the pin, and like I said, the right finish, but just completely overbooked bullshit getting there.
They all they needed to do, we all knew it was coming. We all wanted to see it. All they had to do was have Christian
do it.
Screw Sting. Instead, Christian did in fact screw Sting, but after 800 other things in this match alone. And it was totally overshadowed by all the other bullshit.
You know, it's funny, with the exception of a number of people I can probably count on one hand. Disco Inferno, Vince Russo's mother. That's probably about it. Everybody in the business talks about what an idiot Vince Russo was. Yet they all do the same bullshit. That's what's so funny.
Yeah.
They're just, oh yeah, Russo, blah 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 blah. Oh, you know what we'll do for this fucking match? Let's tease a turn, but swerve everybody, and then we'll do a double swerve into the actual fucking thing. Just turn on the guy.
We don't need to see Christian taking a belly to belly on the floor. We don't need to see a guitar and a chair and the belt. Just do the simple, easy thing. Make it stand out, make it important, and be done with it.
Just turn on the fucker. They couldn't do that.
So yeah, this sucked.
This should have been so much more, and they overbooked it to the point where you're like, okay, great, he turned, but it was missing that special something that it could have had, but they fucked up. So I got to give the pay-per-view a thumbs up just because of the 2 4-star matches.
Yeah, I don't see how you could ever go thumbs down to anything like that.
No. But booking, the booking we already said it. Right thing to do, but wrong.
Horrible
delivery.
way to do it.
Horrible delivery. And it was that. So I think that's pretty much it for the recap. I'm not going to talk much about TNA because we already talked about the beginning of the show yesterday, which included a rant about DVRs, coincidentally, and the end of the show today, which also included a rant about DVRs, and there wasn't much in the middle of the show, except they signed LAX versus Daniels and AJ for the titles next week. I don't like to give away spoilers on the show, but LAX wins the titles, so we can all rejoice. But I mentioned that for a reason, because they were supposed to be a 4-way tag match at the pay-per-view with the winners getting a title shot. TNA decided to just be wacky. Since the Fire canceled the match, instead of just doing the match on TV, they decided to do the match but only have one man from each team involved.
Yes.
Just, I don't know if somebody no-showed or just, let's do something wacky. Let's just do something crazy. So anyway, they did this 4-way match, and guess who wins? The Naturals.
The fucking Naturals.
So all I could think was, and I swear to God Almighty this is true. I can't tell you how long it'll be, but I can tell you this is true. If the Naturals beat LAX, because the Naturals have tenure being with the company for 4 years, despite the fact that LAX is the hottest act in wrestling today, if the Naturals beat them, I will boycott TNA. We will not be watching TNA. We will not be covering the show in the newsletter. And I don't want to become a SureDog.com, so it'll probably only be for 1 week. But I swear to God there will be a TNA boycott for that one.
I thought you were going to predict it would be the end of the company.
No, the company will die
a
of...
small sign of a greater symptom or
No,
greater
I mean,
disease. But
whoever has a tag team titles has nothing to do with the future of the company. It's just stupid.
well, yeah, but it's a small symptom of a greater problem.
It's a small symptom of stupid bookers.
Right.
Is what it is.
And the stupid booker's going to kill the company.
This company ain't going to die.
Well, all I can say is go Naturals.
I'm just... Wow.
One
I'm going to
week.
humble you in this argument. This company ain't dying anytime soon.
That's fine. I'm not arguing about that. I just want 1 week of not having to watch Impact.
Well, I'll make you watch it.
No, you dick.
I was...
You're the person who will say, oh, we got to watch the Diva Search, and then you'll leave the room.
Don't start on this bullshit. Here you are making $400 for a match, and this happens every time your pay goes up. You just start doing these fucking power plays and refusing to do work and being lazier.
You left the room. You're being lazier than I am. I stayed to watch.
What are you talking about? When did I leave the room?
All the time, but
I left.
I had to do updates for you on the Ken Kennedy Tatanka match because you refused to watch it.
Okay, seriously, Vince. How much work was that for you? None.
What if I fast forwarded?
Did I leave the room for the whole fucking match and make you type up a report?
No.
I left for 5 minutes in the middle of a shitty match, and all you had to do was watch.
That was agony.
Don't pull these goddamn power plays, or you're gonna be. The whole thing is some sort of finish. You'll end up being pantsed or something completely humiliating. The ball's in Buddy and my court. You know that we're closer than you and Buddy are.
That's true.
We're like brothers, and you're like that fucking weird kid next door.
Yes, actually, that's very accurate.
Yep. This may become a stickball game, which you'll be left out of and then beaten with the stick. Indeed. TNA.
I said my piece.
I wasn't listening.
I believe you.
They had a match with Naturals, Alex Shelley, and Johnny Devine, which the Naturals lost, causing me to laugh like a madman. And they have been kicked out. Their gear has been stolen by Shane Douglas, apparently. They may not return until they do something with their hair or something or other. This is fine entertainment.
Yeah.
4 fucking years, the Naturals are...
It's still the 2 biggest goofs in the show.
I don't want to get onto a Naturals rant because, like I said, I'm out of energy, but... My God.
Just say fuck them.
4 fucking years. These guys still come out. They still get no reaction. They beg for reaction, and they get a polite little bit of applause. They make a comeback. Nobody gives a flying fuck. And just the most useless tag team in the history of this business.
No one hates them. No one loves them. They're just there, just taking up space, wasting time.
I just don't get it. I mean, are they filleting somebody? Let's just cut to the chase.
Probably.
I can think of no other good reason for this push. After 4 fucking goddamn years.
Many better wrestlers have not gotten this chance to get over.
I don't get it. You know, I know one guy, is going to email me. Because there's always one guy.
The one Naturals fan?
Yeah, the one Naturals fan is always very upset when we bury the Naturals.
Perhaps Chase Stevens is actually a member.
Well, what I'd like to say to this one Naturals fan is, you're the only
Fuck
one.
off!
No. You're the only one.
You're the guy.
I mean, literally thousands and thousands of people hear these shows.
Wait, there are two fans. There's the one guy listening to the show, and there was one fan in the front row at Impact who had the Naturals painting. Which
Planted.
Fine. Okay, it was planted. That's fine. It still amused the hell out of me because on this painting, the Naturals had great big cheesy grins. And all I could think was, when the hell has either of the Naturals ever shown any expression at all whatsoever? Smiled, frowned.
To the one Naturals fan that Vince cut me off in the middle of my statement to. Hey, listen, here's all I got to say. If you love the Naturals, great. Wonderful. Because everyone needs a fan. But the point is, I swear on a stack of Bibles as a reverend, you are the only man ever in 4 years, in the thousands of listeners, readers, etc., who has ever emailed me about the Naturals.
Wait, someone actually did email you about the Naturals?
Yeah, every time I go off on a Naturals rant, one individual emails me and he's upset.
I thought you were joking.
No, I'm dead serious.
How can this be?
Well, I mean, like I said, if you're a fan of the Naturals, great. But I want this man to know that he's the one. This is not a deal where I get thousands of angry emails and people are always going, God damn, Bryan, the Naturals are great. You never give them a chance. This is the guy that always, he's very angry that I don't know their names yet. he always goes, I'm going to make this very clear. The blonde-haired one is Cassidy O'Reilly, or whatever the fuck his name is. The dark-haired one is whoever. And what this man does not understand is, there's a reason I don't know these names.
It doesn't matter.
There's a reason that I and millions of others don't know these people's names after 4 fucking years. It ain't me. It's not me. There's not a... if I buried... I mean, people email me about it. Well, not Test. I can bury Test till the cows come home and I never get an email, but you know what I mean.
He's better than Naturals.
This is the one guy, and I hope I actually get the email tonight, because I sometimes...
You're fired up now.
No. I'm fine with the guy liking the Naturals. I just, I don't get it. I'll never get it. And
I am... Ordinarily, I don't care about what people like or who they like or why they like them. I actually want to know what this guy sees in the Naturals that he likes so much.
Okay, well, email me and I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
I'll forward it to young Vincent. AMW did a skit with Gail Kim. They're about to break up, and no one gives a shit. I noted in the newsletter 2 years ago or whenever it was, they were first about to break up. There was this giant just outpouring of anger and support for them, and now no one gives a shit.
They're stale.
Everyone in this whole company is stale, except for Christian and Rhino. They came out and had a goddamn great little segment.
Yes, they did.
Christian came out, and Rhino was very upset about him for turning on Sting, and Christian was like, okay, when you broke your neck, who the fuck was in the hospital waiting for you? Who called every week? Who was there for you when your wife was about to take your kid to Germany and went and found you and sat there with you and tried to make... Wasn't Sting. It was me. And you're going to choose that fucking face-painted 47-year-old freak preacher over me? And gave him a chair. They got in this big argument. Christian ended up beating the crap out of him with the chair. Gave him the one-man concerto deal. It was great.
It was good stuff. And like I say, it felt like it mattered. It's going somewhere. It's progression of a storyline. That never happens in this show.
It's not even that, though. Because TNA has always had storyline progression. Now, sometimes it just ended. But it's always been there. But it's progression for storylines you don't give a shit about.
I see.
This was something where this is actually interesting. It's two guys. Christian is thousands of miles...
It's day and night.
Day and night is
He's had 2 good days in TNA. Well, I guess 3 if you count the day he won the title and they had the big celebration. There's that day, the very first promo we cut was good, and there was this promo last night. Everything else he's done has been a waste.
Rhino has been reborn. Life is great. Had a goofy segment with Larry, Eric Young, and Borash. I don't even remember
the usual hijinks.
Abyss beat a jobber who may have been...
Cassidy Riley, actually.
Was it the blonde natural? Abyss...
Well, actually, no, but...
Abyss won, spread the thumbtacks all over the ring, and then punched them repeatedly.
What a dumbass.
He's a fucking idiot. But they're going to have a
10,000 thumbtack match next week on Spike.
I don't know what that means. Is there going to be...
I presume they're going to have lots and lots of thumbtacks.
I pictured a half-hour Spike special where they counted them out one by one or something like that.
4,923.
Sure, something of that
4,924.
So then we had Sting accepting the... and by the way, thanks for counting there as I was explaining the joke and just hammering into the ground like thumbtacks in a fist.
Yeah,
It was. That was a Vinny moment.
that was.
We need a TM drop. Trademarked, that little TM. Vinny's...
A drop that represents the print symbol?
Sure.
Okay.
Prince.
Print symbol.
Print. What's the print symbol?
That's a little TM.
That's a trademark symbol.
Yes, that you see in print. We need an audio form of that.
We need an audio trademark sign.
Fine.
You said a print symbol, like there's a video trademark symbol, which also would be a TM. I would like to note. It's print and video and anything visual. It's TM, kids. Just ignore him.
Yeah, please.
Then we had Sting accepting the challenge for the pay-per-view. It's title versus retirement with Jeff Jarrett. I don't give a shit.
Wow.
Some people may, but finally we had the good stuff. AJ Styles and Chris Daniels versus LAX for the tag titles. I actually asked Lance Storm. Actually, I think this was off the air, so...
well...
I don't know, it's something bad. We were just talking about TNA, and I go, did you see Chris Daniels' street clothes? He chose slacks and a button-up shirt. And he was like, did I miss a segment in the beginning of the show that explained this? And I don't think he did.
No. Chris Daniels just showed up in the street fight in slacks, button-up shirt, and probably dress shoes.
Daniels decided, I'm going to show up in my Sears blue tag special here tonight. I just want to look good for this fucking street fight. It was a good match, wacky. The LAX won, and all was right with the world. You know, after going over this again, I don't know why I thought the show was so great, but I have this memory in my mind of the show being great.
The Christian Rhino stuff was great, and the tag match was good stuff.
That shouldn't have made a great show to me, but I don't know. Maybe there was just some other comedy that I liked. I just thought it was a good show. I give it a thumbs up.
Oh, easy thumbs up.
I don't have a really good reason for it, apparently, at this point, but what the hell can you do? Then we had SmackDown, which...
Thumbs down.
Jesus, God, this show is just... I hate this show.
There was...
Oh my God, we haven't talked about Conan.
I missed the...
That was utterly random.
Should have talked about that during the LAX match.
Oh my God, we haven't talked about Conan.
Conan was awesome, Dave. He was awesome in the LAX thing, actually.
Yes, he was.
He was
as usual.
He was jumbo.
This is the jumboest of jumbo boxes you have ever seen.
Jumbo.
Jumbo-est.
Go on.
What are we talking about?
SmackDown.
You're talking about Conan and stuff. You got me totally sidetracked. SmackDown sucked. There's nothing worth watching for the first hour and 50 minutes, and then there was a halfway decent main event that was, I guess, a thumbs up segment, but a miserable, horrible, awful, useless thumbs down show. Is that better?
God, was Ray Tigre atrocious.
Ray Tigre was awful, but he was so far into awful, he was wildly entertaining. His reaction to everything was to pump both fists to his sides and go, "Bee!" When he hit a move, he went, "Bee!" And when they chopped him, he went, "Bee!" And they hit the ropes. They hit the ropes to run at him, and he went, "Bee!" And they hit him with a clothesline.
Enough out of you, God damn it. I want you to know that I hate you for that moment.
What the fuck was I talking about?
Ray Tigre.
Ray Tigre.
Didn't you hear the very fucking beginning? God, was Ray Tigre. God, was Ray Tigre.
I can't hear you because I'm laughing.
God, was Ray Tigre atrocious. God, was Ray Tigre
Okay, I hear it now.
Ray
Tigre was awful, but he was so far into awful, he was wildly entertaining.
You even said Ray Tigre.
Yeah, I'm pretty cool.